It's been over a month since the last presidential elections, and it seems like the election banter is not dying down anytime soon, especially on social media. People are resorting to the banter, and some people are not necessarily using civil language. We've seen cases of cyberbullying and intimidation, and nobody is spared. All the big names have had a fair share of some sort of attack on social media. To discuss this, I have with me a public affairs analyst, Seun Akiyemi. Welcome to the program. I also have a social commentator, Dakbo Adaramewa. Welcome to the program. So let's get straight into it. First of all, we need to understand post-election, cyberbullying and intimidation. What can be defined as cyberbullying to start with? What is the thin line between free speech and cyberbullying?
When you don't have the opportunity to speak freely, I think it's as simple as that. When you are not able to speak freely, and then because you are saying something, everyone is entitled to their opinion. And then more or less, once you are not committing a libel or slander, and then you are trying to speak, and then people are trying to shut you down, they are not allowing you to express your mind, then especially on social media, then that means you are a victim of cyberbullying. Okay, what are your thoughts, Dakbo?
Well, I think cyberbullying, it's all about the intent, really. The bullying is when you set out to say things to hurt people. Now, in an educated, shall we say, debate, I can't say things that can offend somebody, but, you know, that's not the intent. I'm trying to convey a different point. The upset is just by the way. I think that's usually where you draw the line. Okay, so let's get straight into the details, right? Very recently, we've seen that we have people that are obviously on two divides, you know. I remember when President Olusegun Obasanjo endorsed the candidacy of Peter Obi, he came under a lot of attacks from people who do not believe that Peter Obi was the best candidate for Nigeria. Yeah. On the flip side also, we've seen people that, you know, were attacked because they supported the candidacy of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And we've also seen cases where even the spokesperson of these people use certain words, right, on social media. Of particular mention, you've even seen the way Femi Kayode tweets and the choice of words he uses. On the flip side, we've also seen the choice of words the obedience use when they are sort of trying to engage in a conversation that is supposed to be civil. Right? Very recently, Professor Wole Soyinka came under attack for his comments on the dirty speech. You understand? So, and you now see young people who tend to sort of even forget the legacy that, you know, Professor Wole Soyinka has. And that is not to say that he cannot be sort of opposed. Don't get me wrong. But when you now see people using certain words and sort of, you know, almost, permit me to use the word, rubbish him, right? As opposed to saying that we do not agree with you in a civil manner. You know, then we begin to question the intent and everything. So what are your thoughts on the recent heated political arguments on Twitter especially?
Well, for me, I think one is quite sad how people have reduced important conversation on social media to ethnicity and then religious divides. We have, don't let me say we, they have forgotten, they've forgotten the issues and now focus more on, oh, you're a Yoruba person, you're an Igbo person, because you said this, you'll be attacked vehemently. So, for instance, a case of Professor Wole Soyinka is entitled to his opinion. And then young boys now attacking him, use some vile languages. I think it's awkward. Even though I understand that some people have kind of suffered a lot as a result of bad governance that we've experienced in Nigeria, but we should try as much as possible to caution ourselves and be careful of the use of the kind of language that we use in a constructive engagement. It's normal to criticize. That's why we have democracy. We can criticize each other. You can criticize me, I can criticize you. But constructive criticism is what we should be looking out for, not just attacking the person. Attack the argument and not the person. Same thing with when Chimamanda Adichie wrote her piece to the US government. Also, she has been attacked from two. I think Obedient attacked WS. Batified attacked Chimamanda Adichie. And then for Chimamanda Adichie, so even someone said that it's a reflection of colonial mentality. And I was wondering, when the presidential candidates were visiting Chatham House to deliver their speech, was that not a reflection of colonial mentality when we have NIA in Nigeria and all of them are going to Chatham House. And none of them actually visited NIA to deliver their speech. So for me, we should focus more on issues-based conversation on social media. And let us not keep the country divided. Unity is important. I think what we need right now is unity. Yeah, we can criticize each other, but we can criticize each other, it's normal, but let us focus on the issues.
Okay, let's focus on the issues. Now, I'm going to ask you that more. It's one thing for people that might not necessarily be directly involved in terms of certain positions to verbally say certain things. Because, I mean, if we see a random person on Twitter saying that I do not agree with what Wole Soyinka is saying, and also, you know, says one or two things about him that is a bit derogatory, you know, that is one thing. And I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying that is one thing. But a situation whereby we now even have spokespersons of the candidates engaging in those direct verbal uncivil attacks. We've seen a lot of cases with a lot of spokespersons of these political parties and these candidates. They are also directly involved in cyberbullying, and not just the masses. So it's, in as much as we're trying to you know, tell the masses or tell the people to be more civil with their conversations, I also believe that the leaders need to be civil with their conversations. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we've seen this slow erosion of the prestige that used to come with, you know, being a former minister or being a spokesperson for a candidate. You know, all of that has eroded now, and people, you know, shockingly just take on positions that are absurd and say things that are hurtful. Now, you can say the obedience learnt it from these people, you know, after being served, you know, in those terms. You know, people are now, you know, fighting back. But again, I think it takes away from the richness of your argument when you have to, you know, direct to petty insults as opposed to staying on point. But that being said, you know, we've had a generation who have run this country aground, you know, and impoverished the youth of this country. Now, this same generation cannot be the one who's a stickler for respect. You know, this generation has really let us down. And I think it's teething problems that the obedience are having. I mean, this is probably the most active political movement we've had in this country since our fight for independence. So I wouldn't be quick, like Professor Wole Soyinka said, to link it to fascism or anything like that. You know, it's just young people whose emotions are boiling over, expressing themselves. And my appeal to them would be, you know, try and, you know, refine your argument and stick to your point. You know, anybody can call somebody, you know, bad words. It doesn't make you intelligent to do that.
All right. Now let's talk about the issue of fake news. It's almost becoming harder to fact check. People just can tweet just about anything, and if he has enough sentiment to it, it's going to go viral, right? We've seen a lot of materials out there. And some of these materials, I don't think it's in our place to ascertain whether this is an original material or this document obtained is true, but it's just all over social media space from the different sides of the divide. You know, you have one divide bringing up documents saying that, you know, president-elect is so and so, a drug baron, XYZ. On the other side, you also have documents where people are saying that, oh, Mr. Peter Obi, from the alleged leaked audio, is running a religious campaign, a lot of things, right? Now, the first question would be, which body or which people should we depend on to verify these facts? And then, secondly, how much of a due process should we allow? What is even the due process in terms of verifying this information, and what are the implications of eventually, like, this amount of information or these things going through those channels? Like, how competent are these bodies? Let's take, for example, obviously a court of law, the judiciary can say, oh, this evidence is substantial, so we're going to pass a verdict based on this evidence. So what do you have to say about that, Sheol?
Well, I would say the onus is on us as citizens to actually verify any information before we share it. Because, one, the polity is already being heated up, and then it won't be nice for us to contribute to the already heated up polity. Aside from that, There are simple ways to verify information. You can just, if it's a picture, you can just upload it using your Google Lens, and then if it has been used online before, you'll be able to see places where the pictures have been used before. And then secondly, there are a lot of even civil society organizations. I know CDD West Africa, they are doing a lot regarding fact checking. I know ICIR also, Africa Check, so many other organizations that they are doing a lot regarding fact checking information, just to make sure that the information that gets to people are the true information. However, at times it's possible that fake news even spread faster than the original information itself, such that when the fact check, or when the result of the fact check comes back, the people that have seen the fake news will not see the, let's say for instance, there is this issue of this man online, this man that was trying to say something about Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu should not be sworn in on Ibom here, and then someone on Twitter linked the person to a TVC presenter or a TVC staff, which is not true. And then that's quite sad, and I'm not quite sure, but I think there's already a lawsuit on that already. So we should try and, as much as possible, to verify information before we share it. And those that are using the tool of propaganda to eat up the polity, it won't benefit any one of us at the end of the day. Why? Because if you can run away, you can't run away with every member of your family. So Nigeria is for all of us, and we should try as much as possible to keep it safe.
Now, talking about propaganda, because I'm happy you raised this. You know, some people believe, because we've seen a lot of, you just mentioned the man that was taken off of flights for mentioning obedience, and also for saying that the president-elect should not be sworn in. Now, on social media, we've seen several variations of the story. Now some people validate that particular story. Other people say it's a propaganda, and the APC had used this particular individual before. And even there was a previous video of the man wearing an obedience shirt in another location, and a lot of people were saying, oh, this is another propaganda, you know. So now, in such a situation, somebody neutral, how are we now supposed to know which one is the truth? You understand what I'm saying? So the issue of propaganda, and we've seen propaganda is not even something that is just Nigerian. I think it's international. Yeah. Even currently, President Trump is facing charges in America, and while he's going through all of that, he's raising money for his elections. A lot of people are paying money to his campaign just because they believe that the system is being unfair to the former president. You know, so that in itself is some sort of, you know, whatever is happening is also creating, they're using the opportunity to raise funds for his re-election, right? So it's not something that is just unique to Nigeria. But let's hit the nail on the head. How do we sort of manage propaganda? Dabo.
I think journalists like yourself play a very important role in that, in terms of actual investigative journalism, not just regurgitating what we find. Okay, this person said this person. That's not, you know, it needs to go beyond that. And apart from that, we need to enforce the laws that we already have in place. Now, there's a huge discussion about what, Mr. Dati said on TV. But if we look back at previous elections, we've had candidates say things even worse. We've had spokespeople come out and say worse things, threaten different things at different points, but there was no follow-up. If that is indeed against our laws, then those people should have been persecuted back then. And that way we can prevent these kind of things from continuing. So we need to establish we're a country of laws, right? We need to follow our laws and ensure people who are pushing, false information are penalized. And then obviously journalists and individuals, like you said as well, obviously we have a duty of care as individuals. Before you share anything, before you even believe it, just a quick Google search, you discover half the things that you see in your WhatsApp chat are just nonsense.
Yeah, I understand. It's a very delicate and sensitive area that you've gone into, which is journalism, right? We've seen cases, obviously, Channels TV was fined 5 million naira for that video. I'm sure you're aware.
Yes.
Even beyond the established media houses, right? We have the blogs, right? And the traditional institutions that are laden with the responsibility of making sure that the right information goes out are under a body. And you see that in the bid to have fair and balanced views, it's almost like you're treading on a thin line because anything can happen. the NBC might just say, oh, this is from our own interpretation, it's not supposed to be. And that in itself, I think Christian Amanpour once said it, the great journalist, that sometimes in the bid to have a very balanced opinion, we present false equivalency of the truth. But I think we're out of time. I think I'm just going to end it on that note. I would like to thank both of you for coming.
Yeah,
any last words? Just last words, that all.
Well, the future is ours, and I think what the youth have started, it doesn't have to end now. This is something that we can trot on for the next 4 years and really pull together and change Nigeria as we hope to.
All right. Shehu?
Let me just say that one, I like the idea that we've built on. We started with NSAS movement, now we have obedient movement, which is majorly championed by the youth. But I also like that we channel the same energy to hold our elected officials accountable on governance issues. So for instance, and then we've placed so much premium on the president. We've placed so much premium on the governors as well. We should try to also focus our agenda, focus our eyes on the legislatures as well, both at the National Assembly, at the State House of Assembly. Remember, for instance, there's a bill going on in the House of Rep right now saying that they will kind of if you're a medical doctor, you have to spend
a minimum of 5 years
before you get your before you get your certificates. Those kind of, so for instance, those are the kind of issues. If we hold that man, for instance, accountable, or we are conscious of the kind of people that get elected to the National Assembly, I'm not sure those kind of bills will be sponsored in the first instance and then wasting taxpayers' money at the National Assembly.
All right, thank you very much. Hopefully the 10th Assembly will have a much more open NAS so we can be able to sort of interrogate everything that is happening in the House. But to you watching, before you tweet that thing, before you jump on the bandwagon, try your very possible best to fact check the authenticity of that particular information. As much as possible, we only have one country and we need to play our collective role in ensuring that we do not heat up the polity while we attack the issues. And to the young generation, I want to let you know that you have to keep the fire burning, but be as civil as possible.